Welcome to Impact Unscripted. I'm Rahwa Mehari, your host for a conversation that goes deeper than the headline. Each episode, I sit down with leaders shaping impact from every angle. Corporate executives building CSR strategies that move the needle, nonprofit leaders running mission like a business, impact investors planting capital behind change, and community builders making it real on the ground. This is where impact takes many forms. Let's get started. So my guest today has built a career that most people in corporate will be in awe about: international business development, global brand expansion, and deals across 4 continents. And then she walked away from all that and joined a nonprofit as a strategist. Nancy Youssef is a Chief Development Officer and Executive Vice President of International at Souls for Souls, one of the most operationally sophisticated social enterprises in this country. So today I get to sit with her as she explains what it means to move impact like a business and what her work is all about at Souls for Souls. So Nancy, thank you so much for joining me on Impact Unscripted.
Thank you, Rahwa. So nice to be here and to be with you as always. I'm excited for our conversation. Delighted to share about Souls for Souls and the work. I'll start with Souls for Souls and what that's all about. So Souls for Souls is a not-for-profit social enterprise. And really what that means is we create opportunities through shoes and clothing for people all across the globe. And the opportunities look everything like helping during times of disaster, looks like building a business, so entrepreneurs, which is the part I lean into the most probably given my background. Looks like supporting kids experiencing homelessness. And then the newest piece of what that looks like for us is really leaning into circularity and social impact in that way. So taking product that maybe had a shelf life expiry, shoes and clothes, we don't typically think about it that way, but, used, damaged, maybe mold, things that have occurred to the product. And we now have a business that we acquired, and I know we'll talk about that, but that helps remediate that product. So gives it a new life, extends it beyond what it currently is in. So it's a pretty exciting business.
Hey, that's exciting because, a lot of people, they hear the term social enterprise. Can you just, again, explain what social enterprise is when you break it down?
Yes. Social enterprise is essentially just the act of creating more opportunity through a business sense, meaning that it is a not-for-profit, so we get donated product. We then turn that donated product into a job opportunity. We create economic impact for people. So helping people start businesses. We actually partner with another nonprofit called Street Business School that teaches the fundamentals of how do you start and run a business. And we're talking about countries and people that are emerging countries. So some of them live in the most rural parts. They don't necessarily have access. They may not have even had an education. And so the way that we're partnering is working with them to teach the most basic of how do you buy and sell goods? How do you create trade and commerce? And that's what social enterprise is.
So which raises the question, how does an organization land on economic impact as its North Star?
Yeah.
And what does it actually take to hold that standard?
It's a huge North Star. For us, we say that our economic impact by 2030 is $1 billion in economic impact. And if you break that down just into smaller pieces so it's easier to digest, what that means is we value what that pair of shoes or piece of clothing means for that entrepreneur on the ground or that family.
Yeah.
So it is, they're able to create, if they're able to sell the item for $10, for example, that's the economic impact on the ground. So for every family that's able to sell shoes or clothing or then take that skill and do other types of businesses, it's helping to create long-term living wages. It's helping to give them health care. It's helping to give them really sustainable living. One of our entrepreneurs, she's phenomenal. She was really in a place where she had 2 kids that were not mobile. So she had to find a job that she could create opportunity right out of her home. She used to be cleaning homes. She couldn't do that anymore because she couldn't leave the kids. They were in a wheelchair. Ultimately, she got connected to us through one of our nonprofit partners. was able to sell these shoes and clothes right out of her house through Facebook and WhatsApp groups and whatever in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Ultimately, she didn't have a house. She was able to build a house. She lived literally in a HUD. She was able to build a house, brought in other women and men in the community that now sell with her. So she now has been teaching others how to start this business, and the community's thriving. They have a whole community, a school. It's unbelievable.
Oh man, that's exciting when you can actually like get to witness what your job is all about.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So of course, when operating like Souls for Souls, corporate partners are probably are influential. So when corporate partners come to you for sustainability, credibility, how do you make sure that relationship stays honest?
Yeah. It starts with always mission and value alignment, right? Look, a lot of companies, a lot of corporations, sustainability and social mission is an afterthought, right? It's a sort of sometimes a crisis situation. Oh, we're now in the news. Hey, can you help us? Most people are not that way now.
Yeah.
Most people are really mission critical. That is part of the value system. They really want to help people. They want to do good. But there's a variety of ways. And the thing for us and for me, and when I first joined Souls for Souls, that I realized was the light bulb moment is we're also helping to solve a problem.
Yeah.
When I first started at Souls for Souls, there was always this rhetoric of we're looking for a handout, but we're not. We're creating an opportunity to solve a problem for a business. Corporations in particular have excess inventory, have damaged goods, have product that's not selling, samples that are sitting on the shelves that no one's wearing or using, and they need to be able to show impact and help people. And so what are we doing with this product? We're creating a new life for it. We're extending the product life by helping people create these incredible jobs.
So which is perfect segue to the next question, because Souls for Souls just acquired Erren Recondition in Europe. So what does that acquisition unlock strategically that you couldn't do before?
It's a huge unlock. So it's an interesting backstory. We had been partners with Erren almost in a 3PL relationship. So what that means is they stored goods for us for the last 5 or 6 years. And so we've watched the process. Europe also is much more advanced in terms of regulations around recycling and donation. And so their laws are pretty stringent now about what people can do with the product. So Erren is a 46-year-old entity. It's a family business, legacy family business, started by the grandfather, then the father, and now Peter Erren, who's the son, is the business that we currently acquired. And what it created was an opportunity for us to be relevant and current for brand partners. And that means that, yes, we're a nonprofit, but if we're not commercially viable, if we don't make money, we can't help more people, right?
That's right.
Our ultimate goal is to be out of a job. Unfortunately, the way the world is working right now is people are going to still need. And so we haven't quite gotten to be out of the job. And so how do we grow? How do we expand? How do we create bigger relevance for companies, for us to be a good partner? And for us to be a good partner, we wanted to be a one-stop shop. So we wanted to be a place where we could take everything that you have, we can sort it for you, we can grade it for you, we can say, okay, this goes into recycling, this can be donated, this can be fixed and resold for you, can create another income. This really is at the end of its life, and maybe that has to go into waste to energy or whatever the alternatives are. That's how we work with them. And so we're really strategic partner, and we have a seat at the table with most of our partners almost annually as part of their strategy as they're planning out their own year. So it's pretty amazing to be in that space as a nonprofit.
Yeah. And I love that because I know I've learned a lot just from Souls for Souls, like researching it and learning from you, because I don't think I would have really understood what social enterprise meant. And so this is great for our listeners who may not be familiar in the way this is another form of impact in serving communities. So I want to pull you back a little bit. So you have spent years in corporate international business development, Genesco, Excel, I can go on. What was it that called you to Souls for Souls? Like a whole different, or, you can even share your background and everything, but what was it that
I was fortunate enough to actually serve on the board of Souls for Souls while I was in my retail days.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked for a nonprofit, a for-profit called Genesco, as you mentioned. So parent company of brands like Journeys, Johnston Murphy, Dockers. And at the time, this was now, I'm dating myself. You're making me do it. All right, 13 years ago. And I, this opportunity came up to serve on the board of Souls for Souls. Souls for Souls at that time, we'd just gotten our new CEO, which is Buddy Teaster, who's the CEO now. It was a turnaround.
Yeah.
So the founder had, it's all public and you can read about it in the news and the books, but had used the money for things other than the purpose it was intended for. And so Buddy was brought in. We had to dismantle the original board. 4 of us came on to really turn it around. I mean, there were days that we didn't know if we could pay the electricity, never mind the employees, right? It was a crazy situation. But I was drawn to it because it married exactly what I loved and was passionate about. I'm the daughter of immigrants. I grew up in a world in which, going back to our home country in Egypt, you watched every day people all around you walking around barefoot, no shoes, nothing, right? And here was this enterprise, this not-for-profit social enterprise right here in Nashville that was helping people around the world in such an impactful and amazing way. And so I knew that's what I wanted to be a part of. I did not know that I wanted to work there, I will say. So I was on the board for 7 years. One day we had this great conversation. Buddy and I are walking and I was the board chair. So I think it was his review time or something. Who knows? But I'm like, oh, okay, we're going to talk about this. And he was sort of hinting to, do you want to work here? I was not processing that as we were having the conversation. So like a day or two goes by and he calls me finally and directly is like, I don't think you understood. I'm asking you, do you want to come and work here? And my answer was, wait, don't people do that when they retire? And he's like, no. I'm like, I'm just kidding. So I'm like, yes. And, I had a big discussion with my family who basically was like, so you do this for free anyway while you're sitting on the board? Why don't you get paid for it and go in there? It wasn't about that, but it was obvious I was passionate about it. So here we are. 7 years working inside, altogether 13 involved with it. And this year's our 20th anniversary. So
congratulations, 20 years.
Pretty amazing.
And how awesome is that, you're able to bring your strategic mindset into an impactful organization like Souls for Souls. So it's meant to be.
It's been amazing. It's been interesting. I've learned a lot because most folks there are so amazingly mission-driven and passionate about it. I often have to stop myself and stop looking at numbers and going, oh, yeah, we do this for a purpose.
Oh, man. And, and you just mentioned that you're a daughter of immigrants, right? And you've lived in 6 countries.
Yeah.
Speak 5 languages.
Yes.
I mean, I can go on. That's amazing. So how does that background shape in the way you view impact?
Yeah. It's hugely impactful in the way that I see things and approach things. I've been blessed since day one to live all over the world, interact with cultures and people from all over the world. And it changes you. It makes you see things in a very different light. It makes you hyper aware of how people think, how people feel, cultures, religions, all the things. I sit in a room and, this is a real life example. We have sometimes folks that really are from one sort of background. And I'll look at something and say, well, did you think about this? Because, this person might be impacted differently, or this culture thinks about things differently if we're going into a community. Even here in Nashville, different pockets of Nashville, we serve them differently, right? And so I'm always thinking about that innately. It's not, overthinking. It's just deeply part of my life and how I think about things.
It gives you like a strong cultural awareness of everything that you do.
It does.
I love that. And so another thing that you do, you also shape the next generation because you teach at Belmont, correct? So what are you giving students that curriculum alone doesn't give? Or what do you want them to know that curriculum alone doesn't teach?
Exposing them to real world, right? Real world, real current events. Although I have to admit, I learn more from them than they do from me. I'm
Yeah.
confident of that because they're fascinating and
Yeah.
curious, and their curiosity leads me to think about things differently also. It's just sort of another narrative that we have together of, I'm giving them real life and they're giving me curiosity and thoughts and
Yeah.
things that I don't often think about. And I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. And so, the next trip or the next distribution, I'm like, oh, this student, that was an interesting lens,
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And one thing I didn't really touch on is like your background, educational background, Penn State, and then you did your master's in Italy.
So yes, so I actually started my career in investment banking.
Okay.
And it was great. Once again, daughter of immigrants, there were 3 paths. You were going to be a lawyer, a doctor, engineer,
And that's
whatever.
it. Yep.
I failed at all of them,
Yeah,
just
I
so it's clear.
understand that.
I
Yeah.
ended up in banking. It's fine. Much to my parents' chagrin, all I ever wanted to do was get into fashion and retail. Nobody wanted to hire the finance girl in the fun side of fashion, as I call it, so merchandising or buying or designing. So I did what any normal human being does. I applied to fashion design school in Italy, got in, quit my lovely, great paying job. Basically, my salary went like this for the rest of my life, from that moment. But I moved to Milan and studied fashion design. Very quickly realized I'm not a fashion designer. I loved pattern making. It was numbers related. But that's how I stumbled into what would become the rest of my career, actually, was in school there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because look, you in fashion and souls for souls.
Yes.
And when you think about it, and the products, and so it all connected. So thank you. I wanted to make sure to really highlight what brought you to where you are now, right?
Yeah.
So if I could ask you, what aspect of this work still surprises you, like after all these years?
I mean, can I say all of it?
Yeah,
Really?
listen.
Yes, all of it, but also I think the grit and the resilience of the entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They're predominantly female entrepreneurs, again, in communities that are the most rural, the most remote. They don't have access. And to watch them fight for and really claw at getting themselves and their families out of poverty and not throw a hand out. They're working. They're learning skills, and they're passing that on. It is incredible to watch that. And as much as I'm around it, as much as I'm surprised by it all the time. And it gives me sort of this hope and this excitement of, okay, we have to keep that entrepreneurial spirit in everything that we do, right?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. To me, I still am in awe because you get to, do what you love, get to see the impact. And so thank you. So, but before we wrap up, just want to ask you for someone that's sitting in the corporate boardroom or the nonprofit or somewhere in between, and they want to make sure that their work matters more, or they want to do work that truly matters, what would you want them to walk away knowing?
It's the storytelling. You've got to tell the story. And the story is told in 2 ways, data and impact, right? So get in that room, tell your story, show the impact on both sides, the commercial value as well as the altruistic value, right? Like how it's supported people and how it's helped. But it's the story at the end of the day. That's what matters.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Nancy. I really appreciate you joining me on Impact Unscripted. Thank you for sharing with our listeners what it looks like when strategy meets mission. And so for those that might want to learn more about Souls for Souls, what it does, and if they want to get involved or support, will you share with our listeners?
Absolutely. You can reach out to me if you want to. We can share that information, but also www.soulsforsouls.org. It's all the handles are all Souls for Souls, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever. You'll reach all of us. You can find us. Happy to talk anytime.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining me on Impact Unscripted. This is just the beginning where impact takes many forms.